I'm Loving It was on the minds of PR Wiz LLC while in Indonesia, where when the press link up derived in 2012. Because technology plays a vital and impactful role, how do we leverage digital media? Develop tools to leverage the medium. So it's when the press link up social media conference to the rescue. Changing the narrative begins with you. It went down at the University of the District of Columbia, our alma mater, 3 days of action taught by the industry's top social media professionals, an opportunity for creative minds to gather.
I am a writer slash blogger slash social media enthusiast slash journalist. I have all those titles. I've written and was featured in a lot of Baltimore underground media. All those magazines are pretty much like hip hop based music magazines for the most part, because that's mainly what we do in Baltimore City is in the Baltimore art scene. We go to open mics and we have a lot of art shows and stuff like that. The infamous DOC Doc for my own website, Doc's Castle Media, which is an online publishing company that I started 4 years ago in 2012. Doc's Castle Media is a blog company in which gears its entire focus on following the mission of my umbrella company, Doc's Castle LLC, which is a publishing company. And we follow the mission to promote literacy. People can be a part of it. It's basically the book is going to be sold to urban youth, because I want to promote literacy within urban youth. So right now I'm in the works of just creating the book. I took on the role of sharing the truth and showing the citizens in Baltimore, along with anyone else who followed Doc's Castle Media social sites, what really was going on in our city, while large media outlets like CNN and MSNBC painted a negative narrative of West Baltimore City. Up and filming and taking pictures and putting it on Doc's Castle Media, and people who followed me shared it with other people, and they shared it with their friends, and they shared it with their friends, and I wrote 2 opinionated pieces that received attention from larger blogging sites. One called Elite Daily, if you guys know that, who during that time asked me to cover Baltimore Uprising, but eventually I did not write for them about Baltimore Uprising, because during the riots I developed a belief that true journalism was at a high scarcity. Not too many major outlets report the whole story, and like when I watch CNN, every time I turn on CNN, it was just like more about the riots rather than us out there protesting and showing our support for Freddie Gray's family. So I felt that it was my duty to go out there and show the positive messages rather than just the negativity that was being shown on national news. Me and my friends, a lot of like bloggers around Baltimore City, we all did this, and a lot of people got attention. We used to joke about it around the time that the Baltimore Uprising was going on, that we only had one news outlet that we really trusted to show what was happening in the city, and that was WJZ, Channel 13, because the entire day after the Baltimore riots, WJZ dedicated their entire day to showing the protests and it was like step shows and everything that was going on the entire day afterwards. Since Freddie Gray's death, our city is at an all-time uproar, with numerous stories hitting major media about drug, gang, and gun violence. The crime rates in West Baltimore are phenomenal now. It's crazy. And just this week, we had another death that resulted from police brutality. And so even recently, I've become active in finding more information and protecting the image of this young woman who was killed this week. Miss Corinne Gaines, she was a 23-year-old woman who was shot by a SWAT team member in front of her 5-year-old son in the comfort of her very home in Randallstown, Maryland. So basically, at this point, the cycle is repeating itself. So from us talking about Freddie Gray, like I have experience in us going out and talking about the positive things that's happening rather than the negative things. So like I have my friend who's a writer for Uncommon Realist. She went to the candlelight visual for Miss Corinne Games last night, and what I've been doing for my part, because I couldn't make it last night, was I've just been sharing the Uncommon Realist post on my page so everyone could know and about what's going on with Corinne Gaines. But as far as like journalism and social media, I really never pictured myself to be doing anything like this. I went to school for actually public relations and social media management, but I didn't think that I would be going out in the field myself and creating and finding stories on my own. I didn't realize the people that I was going to meet doing stuff like this, and it's a great experience that I'm having. I like that I'm at this event right now because I'm with like-minded people who are probably doing the exact same thing that I'm doing. So I want to welcome everybody, and I want to get to know every single one of you because I feel like we could all help each other out and get tips from each other regarding like what we do with social media management and everything like that. So
Network, learn, and share compelling stories.
My name is Ted Freeman. I am the editor of thedcvoice.com, and that's the website that we launched about 2 years ago now, maybe a little bit longer, but about 2 years ago. And as you can tell by one of those, you'll see one of those featured articles there should be very familiar to you. A lot of those featured articles should be very familiar to you. So when Mindy asked me to come and do a few minutes to talk about how websites can help, how the press gets linked up, I thought this was a good opportunity to kind of show the types of things that we're doing. Because I think we touch a lot of those different areas. When I look at it, you've got the videography pieces that we try to do a feature as often as we can, and we've done a lot of those. We try to reach out and to look at the different headlines that we have here. We've kind of expanded over the years, and it's taken a while. From our home to our headlines, we try to do different business approaches to connecting with our audiences. A lot of opinion, and I think we have people writing from 16 to 60. I was trying to get my granddaughter so we could say 6 to 60, but with the Kids Corner so that we can attract as many people and try to reach out to as many voices. And that's why we chose the DC Voice, because we wanted, everybody has a voice, everybody has a message. And I was listening to what you said earlier, that message doesn't always get out. There's not somebody who listens to them. The media comes when there's events that draw notable figures. If there's a councilman, if there's a mayor, if there's somebody of prominence, the media come out and covers it. But when you just have local events, local council people trying to get things taken care of, it doesn't always draw the same attention. So part of our goal was to say everybody has a voice and use that voice as best you can. So we try to get out and get as many stories as we can that pertain to the local area. Cover different events. We try to even down to things that are happening within neighborhoods, within the smaller community subsets, library things. We try to appeal to as many people as we can. And like I said, it's been a rewarding journey. We still have a long way to go, because I think we've just kind of scratched the surface. The photography piece is another avenue that we use, because one of my other passions or hobbies, so to speak, is in photography. And I think when you're talking about photography and journalism, obviously photojournalism, and you're trying to capture a scene in just a picture. And one that I liked that was pretty recent, conducting a neighborhood night out, the drug traffic was still going on just across the street. So you get this juxtaposition of things happening within a neighborhood where you had McDuffie there, you had the representative from the DC Police Department there, and it all looks good on the surface because they're going to report on how great things were looking there. But if they were to turn their cameras just slightly across the street, then they would have saw a whole different side of that. So all these things, none of these things always get into the mess, get into the media, because they want to go to focus on what they want to focus on. Again, you have to take your opportunity, use whatever tools, whatever medium you're comfortable with, and try to capture that moment. But I like this one because you have to always try to evoke some type of effect from somebody. See a couple of podcasts we've done. Again, all of them are just this whole thing of what do you connect with, what do you try to become a part of to get your message out. Always trying to get your message out. The message is supposed to be key. You find that because the rest of it will kind of build itself through. In Ward 5, one of the complaints when I go to a lot of events, nobody knows where to go to find anything that's going on just in Ward 5. And lately we've started building up this directory. There's over 5,000, close to 4,000 businesses, organizations in Ward 5. We decided we're going to capture them all. So if they want to know where to go, where to find something out, we want them to come to the DC Voice. So that's going to be something that we're going to campaign that we're going to launch pretty soon too. So you keep reaching out, you keep trying to touch as many people as you can, and you find whatever works for you. If you have a talent in a different area, try to bring it across because it's, like I said, the photography thing, I do have another site that I work on personally. I go out from time to time to shoot different things just to try to keep in touch with what's going on, right? And try to keep that skill set so that skill set can feed into the other things that I do. So,
Very nice.
so it's a lot. You just keep trying to find different things. I mean, I don't think I'm done yet. I don't think we're done yet because, like I said, there's a lot of ideas that we keep kicking around, and eventually we're just going to keep taking a step at a time until we keep moving forward. So that's how the DC Voice kind of gets linked up.
With the goal to award a deserving arts and humanities student at the University of the District of Columbia with a scholarship.
It's my middle name, not my last. A lot of people, they're like, oh, hi, Miss Nicole, and I'm like, just call me Candace. So that's the name of my business is Candace Nicole Public Relations, and I've been operating my company 9 years, and when I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary of operating it like full time. So that's been an absolute blessing. So this is my website actually. And I have my little Periscope button on there, which is great for social media. Of course, I'll tie that in because that's why we're here is discussing like PR and social media. And it's at any time, like someone could be on my Periscope right now, live, and it'll light up or whatever to let you know that if you happen to be on my website and I'm on Periscope, it will let you know. I also have my ebook, The PR Puzzle, on sale through Gumroad, $7.99. And then this is just the latest post that I did. It was a press release for the 4th annual Taste Prince George's Food and Wine Festival, which is coming up August 13th. So currently I work with the entertainment blogger, entertainment lifestyle blogger, KMWExclusive.com. She's based in Baltimore. She's also the co-host of Pretty Girl Radio, which airs on DTL Radio. She's the co-host Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with Tierra Lenny's, who's the main host. And then we have RJ Keys. He's actually currently the keyboardist for Boyz II Men, so they're currently on tour, which is pretty awesome. He also has his own band as well. It's more, I guess, jazz. And then most of the time I actually handle PR for events. So for example, the Black Alumni Networking Expo is coming up, which you all are invited. Let me know if you want to come to the expo or the ball. That's actually August 13th as well. So I'm handling the PR for that, and we have like 4 events that are going to start next week. August 11th with the kickoff, the 12th is the panel, dinner at the National Press Club, and then Saturday is the expo and the ball. And then coming up as well is the Taste Prince George's Food and Wine Festival, which is also August 13th during the day. And I just heard that it's actually going to be like 90 degrees on that Saturday. So that's who I'm working with. I had some other events that happened, this summer, and some other people that are reaching out to me currently, that want to be on retainer, but eventually I would want to say like maybe 85% of my business I would like to come from handling PR, from events, conferences, workshops, and launches. So we're here to talk about PR and social media. So I found this, I was on this website, and it said, the question was, did you know that 64% of all PR departments are responsible for social media presence, for their companies? Which I thought that was a lot because when you handle PR, that's a whole different monster than it is, handling social media. The two, you can bring them together and combine them, fuse them together, but then also they can operate separate as well. But 64%, that's actually a high percentage. But it definitely makes sense because also, you're cutting on costs of hiring, extra people coming in to handle social media. So, an example of how I kind of combine the PR and social media is actually with the Taste Prince George's Food and Wine Festival. So we're kind of like in a crunch. We're waiting for some confirmations to come in before like the press release, was going to be sent out, on the wire of who was going to be the host, the performances, celebrity chefs and wineries who would be participating. And I was like, I can't wait I can't miss a whole weekend of sending out this press release. So I said, you know what, I called it a social media push with it. So what I did was I had the press release and then I uploaded it on my site. Well, it's not my site, but I host my press room on there. It's prlog.org, where you can go there. You can see press releases that I wrote in 2011. It's been viewed over probably 50,000 times, just different eyes that have seen different press releases throughout the years. And so I uploaded on there, and of course it gives you, a short link. And then I started sharing on Facebook. I started to share it on Twitter. And then when I posted it on Instagram, by that time I posted it on my website, so it still has a little bit of social media. I was directing people on Instagram, directing them to my company website so they could read the press release. And then on that Monday, that's when I did the full, push to the media and my email blast of the press release. So I didn't miss these 3 days of a weekend of getting my press release out. So that's kind of how I fused everything. The next example actually was the Scarborough Foundation. That was July 3rd. And it was founded by the widow of Skip Scarborough. He's probably he's one of the top, probably one of your favorite songwriters that you probably don't know about. He's written for Earth, Wind & Fire, Can't Hide Love, Les Holiday, Bill Withers' Lovely Day, which was just in that pet movie, that cartoon movie. The Emotions, Don't Ask My Neighbor, LTD, and a whole bunch of other people that he wrote for. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to start to generate buzz with the Facebook page that they had, because there was great content that we were posting. So I came up with this social media campaign where we shared the music videos of these songs that he wrote or co-produced every day for I think maybe up to 2 to 3 weeks, leading up to the gala itself. And I made up the hashtag. So for example, for Tuesday, the hashtag was Take Me Back Tuesday. And let's say if I share the video of Don't Ask My Neighbor by The Emotions, the question was sharing it, but then I would tie in, do you remember where you were when this came out? And then also, still revert them back, push them over to the website to buy their tickets and to learn more. And with that, we actually had, we garnered more than 300 plus people more that were liking the page than it was when I started on the campaign. So those are my two examples. With social media, and because it's very important when you are a PR professional that you do understand social media. Mm-hmm. And it's because that is another way to get the word out, free way to get the word out. And it's easier than having to do the pitching, because sometimes the news or radio, especially radio, they want to know, are you gonna, do you have advertisement dollars? Do you want to do a buy? And if you do a buy, then that equates to, okay, we'll bring you in and we'll interview you. I don't agree with it. However, that's how they pay their bills at the end of the day. And with TV, they may have just interviewed someone who just launched a nail polish company, so they don't want to interview your client. Doesn't mean that they don't want to or the product, isn't great. It's just because they already, utilize that. So going to social media and using the Twitter, the Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Periscope, whatever, Blab, whatever else that is out there, is probably a whole bunch of other apps out there. That is a great way, and like I said, it's the free way, getting the publicity out for your clients. So, do you guys have any questions, or is there anything specific that you want to know about, I guess, the whole PR and social media?
As far as contracts, is it best, say, you're, if an artist approaches you, and an artist is wanting some PR work or something like that, should you give this person a contract up front, or how would, as a PR, what would be the best?
As a PR professional, you definitely want to ask them about their music first. I know some PR professionals, they have about 20-something clients. That will never be me. Unless I do have a solid team that's on salary. And it's because they just bring, anyone approaches them, they're like, okay, great, oh, you can, pay that, okay, then that's fine. And usually it's probably $500 a month, which that's not my retainer. But if you have, 20 people paying you $500 a month or whatever. But I would say to ask to hear their music first. Ask for their SoundCloud. A lot of people, stream. And that's because you have to, you have your own integrity. Your name is all you have at the end of the day. So if it's, let's say you don't like trap music, right? Like you just don't like it. But it's this artist and it's a trap artist. And he sends this over to you and you're just like, that's just not anything that I like. Like I don't know where I would send it. That's good that you asked for that up front, because if you just said, oh no, that sounds great, let's talk budget, and then later on you learn about, you have to ask all these questions up front. And also, for any publicist that's interested like on the music side, you need to understand what mixing and mastering is as well, because you need to be able to hear that in the music, because you need to be able to tell this individual, or ask them, has this been mixed or mastered? Because sometimes it hasn't been mixed or mastered. It sounds like it hasn't, just because they're using, they're in a great studio, they have really great equipment. Because I've listened to some music, and I'm just like, there's no way that I could work with this individual. And they think that they're great, and that's fine. It's wonderful you have that confidence, but you definitely have to ask those questions up front before you just send out a contract.
Thank you for that. Along with aiding Teach for Madagascar nonprofit organization. We'd like to thank our sponsors for this tremendous effort.
My name is Isaiah Parker. I am an internet troll. I am a UDC, the University of District of Columbia alum. We graduated, Mindy Hill and I graduated together. Thank you so much, Mindy Hill, for having me here today. And this is my YouTube channel, which is called D.MYST. Graduated from University of Columbia in journalism, mass media program, mass media arts, and that was back in 2011 I graduated. I also was a staff writer for the Afro-American newspaper. Oh, okay. I was a staff writer for the Afro-American newspaper, which is based in Baltimore and Washington, D.C. It's a historically black newspaper that my family started. I am self-published on Amazon. I have a short story called Burj Khalifa, and it is a very erotic story. I like to, get right into the nitty-gritty of things. Okay, and I am a blogger. I also write about trending topics, write about social commentary. Everyone knows my biggest contribution to the internet was my Beyonce video, where I talked about her formation video that I felt was a bit offensive, where she was on top of a police car, made it into a glamour shot rather than actually making it about the people who were victims of that tragedy. And I had my opinions on that, and of course people got very upset about that. Some agreed and some didn't. Polarizing, of course, but that was something I did not expect to go viral, so it kind of put me in a situation where I began to understand that what you put out there you have no control over, and so you might be presented with situations that you were not ready for. So then Vibe magazine published an article about me, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize that was going to happen from just that video. So speaking about social media, that really hit home for me about the power of social media. I have been doing YouTube since 2011. And originally I did YouTube because I was lonely and I was depressed. I had no one to talk to. So I felt like talking to my camera kind of gave me a friend to talk to. And so people started to watch, and I felt like I had some type of camaraderie with people. Like people agreed with what I was saying. I would talk about being adopted as a kid and how my parents introduced me to the concept of me being adopted through the use of pound puppies. I don't know if anybody remembers pound puppies, but I'm not going to say my age, but not that I'm that old, but they used to have pound puppies where you had to sign the adoption papers, and that's how you got your pound puppies. So people related to that, and so I began to see that what I said mattered, and so I began to have messages from people talking about, oh, you helped me so much, because I had a video about being black, gay, and a preacher's kid, and how my father was very strict on everything from how I acted, how I walked. Like one, you're a teenager, you are rebellious, you have your own, you at least try to have your own individual style. And so I had like black nail polish trying to be with the Gothic people that week. The next week after that, who knows what I was doing. But, he was like, take that nail polish off, boy! And so it was just like, people are gonna think the wrong thing about you and, if you do this and do that. And of course I internalize that as, if they think that I am gay, then that is a negative thing. And so that was translated to the church as well, with him being on the pulpit talking about he does not support things like gay marriage and things like that. So being a preacher's kid and being an acolyte, sitting next to him in the pulpit while he talked about that type of stuff, it's very awkward. And so I talk about politics, as you can see on the screen. I talk about my opinions on people like Hillary Clinton. And I did not hold my tongue. And I used it to sort of put another spin on things that the media does not cover. Because, we know the media doesn't always cover everything. They like to have their personal choice of who they want to be in office, and they don't give you all the information. And so I am not supporting Donald Trump, and I'm not supporting Hillary Clinton. And I'm supporting Jill Stein. And of course, being black and being gay, that is a problem. So people tend to, have opinions on that. And so those are things I do on YouTube. So I graduated in 2011, so social media was pretty similar as it is now. For me, my opinion on social media is a war zone of opinions. Everyone is an expert on social media. Everyone feels like they're an expert, Of course, I'm no expert. People are given the opportunity to sit in front of a camera and have likes and have people commenting, and so they feel like, oh wow, I am important, and this is my chance at being a pundit, which some people didn't even go to school for. But still, it has changed the platform of everything. It has changed the platform from fashion to politics to everything, because now these big companies and things have to compete with what people are putting out on social media. People are eye reporters, and people are filming celebrities doing things, and everyone is their own TMZ, and everyone, has things to put out about these political candidates. And, alternative media is blowing up in a way that is kind of rivaling the television, things like InfoWars and things like that. So it is just a time where people kind of are hooked, and they're hooked on this idea of attention. And of course, people have egos, and social media, to me, I feel like it gives people a false ego. But at the same time, it can be very helpful, because we would not have Barack Obama today had it not been for social media. His campaign on social media was, innovative. It was transformative. No one had ever done that before with his campaign. If it wasn't for especially young people on social media putting him out there, and his campaign did an amazing job with that, he would not be where he is today. So it has its great qualities as well. And of course, today we would not know who Jill Stein is, or who Gary Johnson is, had it not been for social media, because who was going to talk to them on the mainstream media? No one. So we tend to think that there are only two candidates, Miss Hillary Rodham Clinton, and dare I say it, Donald Trump. So we would not know that anyone else exists. So the great thing about social media is that someone like me, well, a few years ago I found out who Jill Stein was, finds out about Jill Stein, is able to see what her policies are. She's speaking with the Young Turks, she's speaking with different alternative media outlets, she's putting her own videos out there, so I'm able to know how she feels on things, and I'm able to understand there's more than one female candidate for president. It's not just one person who's trying to break down the ceiling. So the election has been changed by this. Every election is going to be changed by this forever, because social media is very powerful. And Donald Trump, as we know, likes to tweet. And so we literally have a campaign this year where Twitter is at the forefront of this general election, because we have someone who likes to tweet everything, even our secrets, on Twitter. So, we live in a world where social media has even infiltrated, the White House and everything. So, and I'm sure that if he, God forbid, became president, that everything would be up on that Twitter. Hopefully they will shut down Twitter before he becomes president, because God knows what he's going to put on there. So now we have a time where people are looking for authenticity. They're looking for people to give them, news from an unbiased source. And that's why I think alternative media, people like bloggers and vloggers, whatever you want to call them, are so popular, because people do not want these robotic instruments on their television, these talking heads who, it seems like, they have certain interests there. You have these things like the DNC leaks that came out, when you have, questionable activities between people in the DNC and people who are pundits, and the relationships there to try to shut out Bernie Sanders, who a lot of us supported, including myself, and then of course we're happy with that, so now we have to go somewhere else. And so now we have a time when people just want to feel like people who are giving them information are coming at them in an authentic manner. And so that's why you have people online who are becoming more popular and more influential. A lot of times you have people, so myself, other people should be taken with a grain of salt. We're just people with opinions. Like even the people like InfoWars and young people riled up, and it creates a environment of outrage on Facebook. Everyone's outraged about this, and it creates this, like I said, wars of opinions, and emotions are exploding on social media now because of that. And so that is what I feel. I really am glad that social media has been invented. I think like everything has its bad sides and its good sides, but social media has allowed for an opportunity for certain entities to have accountability, because you have, police situations being caught, and you have DNC leaks, you have things like that. So my thing is, social media is a good thing, because you know what? We are able to communicate in a way that we've never been able to before. And I feel like, what's wrong with people expressing themselves and having an audience? Because you know what? We all need to feel like there is someone who you can relate to. A lot of us have no one on television that we feel like we can relate to. So anyway, I'm Isaiah Parker. That is my spiel. I really am someone who is a social media troll, I would say, people call me, because I'm all over social media, always having an opinion, but it is a good outlet for me, and I think it's very helpful. Anyway, thank you so much for listening.
For making this all possible. Please also feel free to donate to our GoFundMe account, as these efforts are continuous.
Gary Washington, Israel. I'm a videographer I'm a videographer. I own a company called Mindframe Elevated Media, but I am a videographer for a couple of companies in DC right now. One is Howard. I'm a Howard University student, and I work for Howard University Radio as a videographer for them. And I also work for National History Center, doing videography for them, and another webcast company called Spark Street Digital, where they work and things like that. I've probably been doing videography for about 3 or 4 years. I honestly didn't start out even wanting to do any kind of camera work. I started out doing music, and it kind of I started making my own. I was making my own music camera to shoot. Like I needed to shoot a music video. I gotta get my music out here so people can, see who I am. They gotta put a face with what they're listening to. And I understood like the importance of that, of getting especially like the first impression of that. And so I bought a camera, and I shot a few things just randomly here and there, and I kind of realized like, I really like this camera a little bit more than I think I do like making music, which I still love music now, but I kind of just started from there, and I got a job working for AB. I'm from North Carolina. I got a job working for ABC out there as like a production assistant, and my love for like production in general just kind of grew from there. And I was in school at the time at a community college, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was almost done with my associate's degree, and I had a pretty high GPA, like a 3.7. I hadn't really failed anything, but I didn't have like a focus. So I realized, okay, I'm working at ABC. I already kind of like camera work. And I'm like, well, why don't I just go to school for like film or something like that? So I ended up applying to Howard and to their film program, and they accepted me like last year of May. So I've been there ever since then, and this is kind of where I'm at now. I started the Mindframe Elevator Media Company, and it started out just as Mindframe Elevator, and it was just, that was for my music. And I added on the media once, I started working on productions for me and other people, and it kind of been just taking off from there. I had a video production class last semester, winter 2015, that really kind of challenged me to start making all kinds of like different stuff. One of my best projects I'm about to show you now is a project that started out that was supposed to be for 6 people, and like as time went on, none of my classmates got up with each other to do things they needed to do. So I ended up having to shoot something myself at the very last day, at the last minute. But I ended up getting an A, and everybody else got like C's and D's and stuff. So it kind of came out right. And my professor, and I told my professor what happened. He was like, well, maybe it was meant for you to do that by yourself, because we wouldn't have got what we got, or you wouldn't have made what you made if you had other people with you. So it kind of, I guess, was a blessing in disguise or whatnot. And here it is. It was supposed to be like the assignment was like a silent film. You could put music to it or whatever, but you just had to like give a basic idea of something, anything you wanted to. So. Different angles and things you could do, and you can't see the screen, you can't always look through the viewfinder. Usually doing video, you're not looking through the viewfinder anyway, you're looking at the LCD screen. So I ended up getting that for that reason. But it's a D5300 that does the same thing, and so on and so on. All the lower levels don't come out, but they're still really good cameras. The sensor on this, I want to say, is a 1/4-inch sensor. Pretty good. The bigger the sensor, the better the camera and the colors overall usually. But the problem is with the sensor is the bigger the sensor usually is, the more money it costs. So you have to like kind of find like a simple medium like, in your budget to see like where you could go. I also have 33. This is more so I use for like those business meetings and corporation meetings with like Bloomberg. If I'm working for Spark Street, the company I was talking about earlier, if they don't have like a big video camera, I might pull this out, and this kind of does like the same thing. You just hook it up to the tripod or whatnot. And this has a 1-inch sensor, I want to say. Yeah, the 1-inch sensor. With Sony, I found out just going through cameras, Sony has like the best sensors on their cameras. Like if you can afford to get a Sony, get one. Like you don't have to, but if you can, just do it. Then they like usually make the best sensors for most cameras. Actually, I also found out Nikon gets Sony to make those sensors too. So if you can't get a Sony, you get a Nikon, you might kind of get the same like quality. The thing is though too, I've noticed like over years, video camcorders and DSLR cameras, the video quality looks different, like completely different than than each other. Like you can shoot the exact same thing and feel like this one looks like I say it looks dreamier on like a DSLR than it does like on a regular camcorder. Like I think DSLR cameras kind of exaggerate the image a little bit more, but it depends on what you want. You might want that. So it's just about trying stuff. Also in that video, you might have saw this right here. That's also on the logo back there. This audio recorder. This is a H4n Zoom. I use this to plug into like, for like business meetings and stuff when people are talking on mics. You usually use something like this to get the audio. And when you go back, if you're doing the editing too, you go back doing the editing, this works way better than the sound from most cameras. Like most cameras that have like, most cameras that come out now have pretty good sound. Like if you can't afford one of these, like the sound of the camera, depending on the room and location and like what the room is made out of, you might be able to get away with just using like a camera with regular audio. But if you can't afford it, get you an audio recorder and some XLR cables for that. The H4n Zoom, I got this one just because a company I was working for when I first started off used a bunch of these, but it's a bunch of different ones. The H2n Zoom, and I want to say Sony has a few recorders, but this one you should be able to find online on Amazon for maybe between $100 and $200. You get it. This one was used. I got this one for like $89.99, so this is like a steal, really. So another thing you'll notice though too, like any production equipment is gonna have like this expenses. Like try to go out your way to not buy stuff from the store. You don't have to. Like get some used stuff that's that's really good quality, because you're gonna be buying some stuff you're gonna realize like, yo, this is really hot. Like, you know what I mean? So try to like buy used stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. Like it doesn't really matter. I mean, and in film class, we learned the first thing, and like first day, you talk about cameras. My focus is cinematography, and my film teacher loves to say like it's not necessarily the camera, the type of camera you got. It's like what you do with the camera. So I mean, it's films like Netflix. A Netflix film out right now that won an award. I can't remember the name of it, but that whole film was shot on an iPhone. Like that's crazy. But it's not crazy. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it, but when you look at it, you're like, well, dang, I didn't even know I had an iPhone when I shot that. Like, it's really about what you do. I wouldn't recommend shooting on iPhones all the time because you need a lot of attachments and stuff to really make that happen. And it kind of ended up being the same price as if you went and got a camera. So I wouldn't necessarily do that, but you can or whatever. What's another thing? You got your audio device, your camera. Once you decide that, you also need something to stand your camera on, which I have just a basic Magnum XL XG tripod here. This is like my main tripod. Tripods can get expensive too. This is worth spending some money on because your investment in your camera is standing on this the entire time. Like, I can't even tell you how many times I've seen people leave their camera and the wind blows too fast, or a kid runs by, and it just drops to the ground, and your investment is done with, just off something simple. So get a strong enough tripod that won't just like whimper in the wind. Another thing you could use too that's really good for videography, like period, is a monopod. This allows you to stand up, with your camera and get like a nice angled shot. And you can also, instead, with your tripod, it's like big and lanky, but this, like, you gotta hold it and you're steady. You can just move around like how you want to and get your angles and things like that. And, it adjusts different heights. Monopods are pretty inexpensive. I got this for like $20, so that's not too bad. You can also buy the ones that have the tri-legs on the bottom where you can just leave it where it's at, like a tripod would, but I would just
use like a stabilizer.
Stabilize. Well, you can use a stabilizer too. My Sony 4K has a built-in stabilizer that works really, really good. I can like handheld with this, and you probably won't even notice. But I still like try to use like a tripod or monopod, like if I can. Or also like if you can afford it, like harnesses and shoulder straps. I just bought a shoulder stabilizer from Amazon the other day. I'm still waiting on it to come in the mail, but it like wraps up on both shoulders and you can put whatever camera you want on it, and it has like attachments. You put like lights and mics on it to like, give it like that full cinematography feel. But depending on what you're doing, you might not need all that. Speaking on cinematography and videography, those are one and the same, but when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, those really are two different things. Like, I want to say cinematography is more so something that's based off of script. Like, you usually have time and like planning all that stuff out when you're doing cinematography. Videography is more stuff like it's on the fly. like, you didn't necessarily plan out how you was gonna do it, you just kind of went out there and do it. And it's more so based off your perspective of what happened. Like, most of the time when somebody asks me to like cover an event for them, they want me to, get like a general gist of what happened and just, what I'm saying, maybe not the whole thing, just like a recap of what happened. And that's more so based off of, the video is based off my perspective of that event. Like, and that's what all video is really. Like, you let people see what you want them to see and how you want them to see it. And that's what it is, and that's the power in it as well. Like, you are the eye. Like, another thing my film professor likes to say, like, this is an eye and it is a paintbrush. Like, this is a mechanical eye. That's all that really is. Like, just how your eyes work and let light in through your corneas, that's all this is. Like, you know what I mean? And you kind of look at it as, okay, if this is my eye, what do I want people to see through my eyes? You know what I mean? So if you look at it like that when you're going to cover an event, it kind of gives you direction to go, so to speak, or whatever. Like, yeah, and it's a paintbrush. Like, literally, that's all this really is. Like, it's a mechanical paintbrush, and you got your extensions of that with your tripod and your sensors and all that. But you're painting a picture for people to see once you're done. That's what you're really doing. What's another thing? When you're shooting, like, just going over like basic shots, for videography, like, depending on like what you're doing, you might not be getting like close-ups and stuff like that. You might just be running around getting shots here and there. But if you're doing your own editing as well, I would try to get as many different shots as you can so you have stuff to choose from when you go back and edit.
Now and enjoy Win the Press Link Up Social Media Conference 2016.
Good morning. My name is Whitney Lewandowski. As was mentioned, I am an attorney advisor at the Library of Congress at the U.S. Copyright Office. The Copyright Office is an independent division within the Library of Congress, and our job is to administer the copyright law. So today I'll be presenting, answering some core questions regarding copyright. What it covers, what it protects, who does it belong to, how do you use it, and then just add a couple of tips for social media users, things to think about in your everyday practice. So we'll start with one of the core questions. What is copyright? So copyright is a series of federal law. Generally it's known as the Copyright Act. You can find it in Title 17 of the U.S. Code. But copyright protection exists in original works of authorship that are fixed in a tangible medium of expression. So a couple things to go into. When we say original, we mean works with a minimum degree of creativity. And creativity is very low. There's a very low threshold, but it does exist. You have to have a minimally creative work in order to have copyright protection. And when we say authorship, we mean human authorship. You may have heard of the monkey selfie case. You may have heard about elephants painting. Those works are not protectable by copyright. The copyright law requires that a human creates a work or is in control of the means of creation of a work. So that's why things that are created in a mediated way, like photographs with a camera, or blog posts with a computer, or computer programs, computer games, all that fun stuff, that's also protectable by copyright, even though a human doesn't physically engage in creating the work. They're in control of the mechanical production of the work. And finally, we say fixed. It has to be perceptible. It has to be reproducible. You have to be able to see it. You have to be able to share it. You have to be able to use it or copy it in order for it to be available for copyright. So this presentation today, if it weren't being recorded, what I would say would not theoretically be copyrightable because there's no way that it was fixed. You could sit here and be part of the presentation and see the presentation and then use the presentation because it wasn't recorded. So that's what we mean by fixed. I will point out that there is an important part, the distinction to be made in copyright is that copyright protects original expressive creation. Copyright doesn't protect facts, it doesn't protect ideas, it doesn't protect systems or methods or any of that other stuff. It protects the creative way in which those ideas, methods, or systems were expressed, but not the underlying facts or ideas itself. So now that we've got the scope of copyright, what type of works are protected? And this is a list that's found in the statute. It's not exhaustive, but it is representative of the type of works that are copyrightable. Literary works, musical compositions, sound recordings, architectural works, pantomimes, motion pictures, and pictorial, graphic, and sculpture works. One distinction that I just want to make between some of these categories that sort of comes up with people who are using or making social media or are musicians or artists. There's two separate categories there, one that's called a musical composition and one that's called a sound recording. When you listen to music coming over the air, over the radio, over Spotify, Pandora, from your CD, from your boombox, any of that, you're actually listening to two creative works. You're listening to the composition, which is music and lyrics, and then you're listening to a sound recording, which is the performance and the production elements that went into fixing the sounds that you're hearing. This gets important a little bit later for registration, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Okay, so now we know what copyright protects. We know that copyright protects creative expression, fixed in a tangible form, and a human authorship. And so now the question is, who does it belong to? The general rule is that copyright protection exists and is owned by the author of a work from the moment that it is fixed. So you draw, you write, you put up you create a YouTube video, you take a picture on Instagram. That picture, that video, that blog post, from the moment that it's created, belongs to the author, it belongs to you. And what this means is that sometimes the intellectual property, that copyright, moves separately from the physical object. So if you take a photograph and you give that photograph to a friend, you still retain the copyright in the photograph, although your friend now has the physical object. If you buy a painting, the copyright in the painting sticks with the author while you have the physical object. When you buy a book, you don't necessarily have copyright ownership of the book, you just have that physical thing. There is one exception to the idea that copyright ownership belongs first and foremost with the author, and it's called works made for hire. So work made for hire changes who the author and copyright owner is. You can have a work made for hire in two situations. First, when a work is created by an employee in an employment relationship. And second, when a work is based off of a written commission. And in both of these situations, the owner of copyright and the author of copyright is not actually the person who created the work. So in the first situation, in the scope of employment, the employer is considered the owner of a copyright work. If it's a second situation where there is a written agreement before the work is created and the work is of the type of a compilation or a movie or a couple of other different categories, then the work, the copyright and authorship belongs to the person who commissioned the work rather than the person who created it. Okay, so we've talked about what copyright covers, what type of works, who owns it, and now if you own a copyright, what do you do with it? The law gives you, depending on the type of work, up to 6 exclusive rights in using a work. If you own a copyright, you have the right to make copies. You have the right to adapt to the work, to create derivative works, to create new works based off of your original work. You have the right to distribute your work. Also implied in that is the negative. You have the right to not distribute your work. Depending on what type of work it is, you have the right to publicly perform the work. So musical compositions, literary works, dramatic works. You have the right to publicly perform this for an audience. You have the right to publicly display a work. So if it's a painting, sculpture, photograph, if it's a book, if it's a musical composition, you have the right to publicly display it. And the final one, which is really important in the internet context, is the right to publicly perform the work by means of a digital audio transmission. And this applies to sound recordings only. A short history lesson. Back before the 70s, sound recordings, records, were not considered covered under copyright. They were covered by state law, but they weren't covered by federal law. In 1972, they started covering sound recordings under federal law. And the current law that we have now was passed in 1976. And at that time, legislators determined that sound recordings, there is no public performance for a sound recording. You just didn't have it. And so time went on, the internet came about, and people started sharing files. People started streaming music over the internet. And it became a question then of, these sound recordings were being used often and without the permission of the copyright holders. And at that point, sound recording transmission by means of a digital audio transmission became important, because that meant that when a song is played over the internet, the owner of the copyright in the sound recording could control and could make some money and economically benefit from that use online. So this publicly perform the work by means of digital audio transmission, that's what brings music to you by Pandora. That's what brings music to you by Spotify. It's become a vehicle for a lot of the delivering of music over the internet. Okay, so when does copyright begin? And how long does it last? Well, we talked about copyright ownership begins with the author from the moment that the work is created. So copyright protection. The copyright law starts taking effect the moment that a work is fixed in tangible form. Now, for works that were created after 1978, the term of copyright is life plus 70 years. And so when we say life, we mean life of the author. For works created before 1978, there are different set of rules that apply. But in general, know that for works produced after 1978, the term is life plus 70. If the work is created on a work for hire basis, or if a work is created anonymously or pseudonymously, the term's a little different. It's either 95 years from publication or 120 years from creation, whichever is shorter. All right, so you own a copyright, you know how to use a copyright with those 6 rights. There are things that you can do to enhance your protection of copyright. First, you can put the copyright notice. This is something that I imagine everyone has seen on the back of CD covers, on books, on movies, before or after movies, all that fun stuff. It's called copyright notice. And what it does is it provides legal heads up to people that see your work or use your work that you claim copyright. And it's very easy to do. First, you put the year, and this is the year, if it's unpublished, it's the year of creation. If it's a published work, it's the year of publication. You put the magic C in a circle, and then you put the copyright owner's name. And you can do any name that is identifiable, that allows people to know that you are the person that claims copyright. So that provides some statutory advantages. If you do have to file suit, it provides a public record of your copyright claim. Finally, there is litigation. The tools of enforcement for copyright is always within the hands of the copyright owner. The copyright owner is the person who has the means and the direction to enforce copyright. Litigation has to happen in a federal court, and it has to happen after registration. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about registration because that's what our office does. So copyright.gov, we have an online registration system. You complete an online application, so you can go to our website, sign up for a username and password, complete the application, submit a filing fee. To register a work, it's $55 for one published work or a collection of unpublished works. If you are a photo, happy to talk about that later if anyone would like to know. And then you upload a copy of your work because it's important to, in order for registration to be valid, we have to have a deposit. We have to know exactly what it is that you're claiming in copyright. And what happens is once we receive an application, we review the application for that minimum degree of creativity, and then we'll send out a certificate. And once you receive that certificate with an effective date of registration, your work is considered registered, period. If you transfer the copyright, if you decide to do something else with the copyright, there's a recordation system that we run. It's also not mandatory, but it's also a good way to keep that public record going and keep it accurate. Okay, so we've talked about what copyright law covers, we've talked about who owns it, we've talked about how you use it if you own it. What happens if you don't own it? What do I do? As I mentioned, there are the 6 exclusive rights and how to use a copyrighted work. The law gives the copyright owner the ability to engage in that activity, but then also to authorize others to engage in that activity. The exclusive rights provide exclusive control with certain statutory exceptions to use that work. So if you don't own the copyright, if you want to use third-party work, the general rule is to seek permission. A non-exclusive grant to use a work that does not have to be in writing. An exclusive grant does, but either way, the general rule is to seek permission. Because if there is a violation of the exclusive rights of copyright, then it's an infringement. An infringement, then that implicates that litigation and that whole system of enforcement. So we talk about permission first. And that's one of the things that the copyright registration system allows you to do, is to look up a work on our website, see who owns it, see how to get in touch, see if you can get in touch, and that can help facilitate the way of getting permission and using a work without infringing. Now I imagine that a lot of people words fair use, section 107 of the copyright law. And it's a statutory exception to otherwise infringing use of works. It's a legal structure that tells you when you do not need to seek permission before you use a copyrighted work. The statutory provision gives examples of sort of what we all think of as fair use: criticism, commentary, reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. These purposes are sort of seen as paradigmatic fair use, sort of the types of priorities that we want to ensure in copyright law. And these types of uses are considered to be safe fair use. Now, if it doesn't fall into one of those categories, and sometimes even if it does, there are 4 statutory questions that you need to ask. First, what is the purpose and character of the use? Why am I using this copyrighted use and how am I using it? Second, the nature of the copyrighted work. What type of work is this? Is this something that is mostly factual and like only has a little bit of creativity, or is this a super creative poem, movie, painting, sort of? What type of work is it in the copyrighted work that I'm using? Third, amount used. How much of the copyrighted work am I using in order to produce my own work? And finally, the economic effect of the use on the market of the original copyright owner. If I use this work, am I potentially taking away the ability of the copyright owner to exploit or create an economic market for the original copyrighted work? So the other thing that we also want to talk about is parody. Parody is a big category of fair use. It's also a paradigmatic fair use. But overall, if you want to use a copyrighted work and are not going to seek permission, you have to answer those 4 questions. And I think that it's a way to be honest with your use and with yourself in order to determine whether or not it is actually a fair use. There is no magic formula for fair use. There is no magic words for fair use. It is a factual inquiry that one has to engage in each time you use someone else's work. The Copyright Office, to help you out and help sort of figure out and navigate ways or questions that you might have, we have what's called the Fair Use Index, available at copyright.gov/fair use. It is a compilation of recent court cases along with brief summaries organized by topic. So if you have a situation where it's like, is this a parody? I don't know. Have the court said something? You can look at the Fair Use Index and see if there are other court cases out there that are talking about the issues that you're encountering. In social media engagement, first is that copyright exists in any creative work. It is format neutral. Even if it's a post on Facebook, if it's a blog post on a website, there's equal, so long as there's that minimum degree of creativity, the copyright protection is there. It doesn't matter that it's not a book, it doesn't matter that it's not a map, or it doesn't have to be high art, it just has to have that minimum degree of creativity in order to have a copyright protection. It's format neutral. If you see a sculpture that is protected by copyright and you take a picture of that sculpture, that is use, that is making a copy of the copyright or of the sculpture, or a derivative work of the sculpture. So know that just because the copy that you make is different or comes in a different format than the original work, that is still a use of the copyright. And it doesn't matter that it's in 2 different mediums. Third, I'll just reiterate, it's always important to seek permission. Seeking permission means that you can reach out, you can have a discussion, you can get authorization to use the work and stay on the right side of the law. And the final one is check your terms and conditions. When you use a social media network, or if you use a website, there are always terms and conditions with text that govern intellectual property and copyright. Read those conditions. Every company has an expectation for how you bring copyrighted works in. They have expectations for how they want to use copyrights in their service, and they will have expectations about what you will do with infringing or non-infringing material on their website. So always check your terms and conditions. So thank you. That is Copyright Essential. I'm doing it. And you said I speed it up so that they don't catch me.
Yeah.
So they don't catch me is not sort of within a bound of fair use. You gotta ask yourself why you're doing it, really. And there's no magic formula. It's not like, I had.
Not like if you're doing like if you're critiquing a political speech, and Trump will come out and there's a song playing in the background, and so you're doing it to critique Trump, but you don't want to have the song.
So there's a concept in copyright called incidental use, whereas if a song is in the background of something and that song is incidental to the creative work, or is incidental to the use of a certain work, then it's not an infringement. But so you talk about Google and, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act has that notice and takedown system where you get that little ding from YouTube saying someone has said that this is, third-party music and, they think that you're infringing it and they take it down.
Right.
And then you have to engage into whether or not to bring it back up. At which point then the person who owned the original work has to decide how to move forward. And some copyright holders will just use an automated system, so it's not, it's not like they've actually looked at your video, it's that there are some algorithms in there that picked it out.
Right. That's how it usually is.
Yeah, so it's all a case-by-case situation.
The YouTube, it doesn't really seem like that applies. Like they don't really know why you're using it. It's just a chip, like you said, it's automated. So,
Right, so-
like a lot of us will critique things, but then we have no control over a song being played, like while they're doing it.
So YouTube is a third party, right?
Right.
The third intermediary in this. They don't make value judgments in terms of what's posted on the content. It's that they are told by an outside party,
Right.
hey, that's my copyrighted material, and then Google is required to respond, and they're required to respond by taking it down and sending the user a notice. And then at that point, I'm sure you've looked at, the user has to determine whether or not to contest that notice. And that's just the way that the system works.
So now that I think when Trump had a rally recently, I think there was a band that is suing him now because he came out with the music. When he came out from behind, he was playing a song.
Yeah, it was Queen, yeah.
Yeah, so they went ahead and had a
I don't know if they actually sued.
okay, because it was on the news, I think.
So music in public venues works kind of interestingly. So value neutral, if you play a song at a rally, that's a public performance.
Mhm.
That's a potential infringement of copyright. Have you heard of ASCAP, BMI? BMI? Yeah, so that's a PRO, that's a public rights organization. And what they do is they have composers and publishers sign up with them to help enforce their public performance rights of musical compositions. And so BMI then will go to venues and offer a license, a blanket license, saying, well, you can perform anything that's in the BMI catalog if you pay this license. If you comply with this license and it's in the catalog, you can play, you don't need to get additional permission from the composers or the authors or the copyright holders. And at that point, they have freedom to play whatever's in the catalog, and it doesn't matter what the musician or artist or the composer thinks about it. It's just that's part of the blanket license, that's the system, that's what's been signed up for. And so I would always recommend paying attention when you hear those stories about artists who publicly object to the use of a work by a candidate. Sometimes it really depends on whether there's a blanket license or not, whether or not whether there's actually a copyright implication.
There's their own personal feelings, and
Yeah.
not so much a copyright infringement.
Correct.
My name is Uriah Brandon. I am a filmmaker slash journalist, somewhat of an investigative reporter as well. I've been doing film for about 14 years, ever since college. The journalism, I went to school for journalism. I have a degree in journalism. Went to North Carolina A&T State University, HBCU. Maybe about a little over a year ago, I was just looking for a platform to be able to express some of my frustrations that I found in the media. So it became more of a crusade after a while. We watch the news every day. We take a lot of the information that we get on television at face value. We take it as truth. From my experience in working in news and understanding how corporations are linked to the media. It really became a mission of mine to try to really get to the bottom of certain stories that I felt like were fallacies. And then you start asking a lot of questions. You ask, why this, why this, why this? So to me right now, the thing about social media today is it's more valid than the actual news. Now I know a lot of people are like, you can't get your news from Facebook. Well, if it happens on Facebook, chances are nobody had a chance to write their quote-unquote story about it. Case in point, with the girl who just got murdered in Baltimore by the cops. We can talk about the situation with the shooter in Dallas. What you have here is the media being able to control the narrative. You have the police being able to control the narrative. Say what you want to, the reason that the police in the Corinne Gaines situation in Baltimore, the reason that they shut down her Facebook is because they needed to be able to control the information that got out to everyone. And the funny thing is, it's easy to, once you study the media and you understand how it works, things are funny. What we take as fact isn't really fact. On the first day that, God bless her soul, God rest her soul, the first day that the young lady got murdered and the police talked to the media, in several statements they claimed that they obtained the key. They also claimed that, they did shoot first. Well, what we now know is they kicked in the door. They admitted to kicking in the door. And they also admitted to shooting first. So now you have to paint the scene. And what the media does is, and especially when you're talking about media and race, and how the media uses race to make money. We'll talk about that in a minute. But, the narrative can't get past what people are starting to recognize about how the media works. The woman did nothing to get killed. She got murdered in her house. And the thing about it is, the police said that when the story first happened, the police said that they obtained the key, which was a lie. They ended up kicking down the door. And so when you talk about things like that, when you talk about she was being fired upon, the police were being fired upon, what happens once they shut her Facebook down, her story doesn't matter. They officially control the narrative. Social media is ahead of the mainstream media every step of the way. It's ahead of the police departments. And it's interesting because the people who like to control the information, they really can't control social media. So it comes up to these law enforcement agencies to get these emergency, let's take your Facebook down really fast so we can run in your house and shoot you and we can control the story. So case in point, when the guy in Dallas, Micah X. Johnson, who did not, I know for a fact, did not kill any cops in Dallas. Let's set the story straight on that, okay? When that went down, Twitter debunked the cops in 20 minutes. Twitter saved his life because that guy who was walking around with a gun, who was already being named as a suspect at the police department, when everyone knows, and people just forget about the eyewitness account, like the people who were invested in the story, when they say that there's a sniper over here and there was sniper fire, right? But there's also a guy in military combat gear shooting someone on the street. That's documented on video. And we know that guy who was on video we know he wasn't Micah X. Johnson. He didn't look like it. He didn't walk like a brother walked. He didn't move like that. We know that wasn't him. What we also know is, I love my black people, but Micah X. Johnson didn't organize a terrorist attack in less than a day. He didn't do it. He didn't set up in 3 stations in downtown Dallas and have guns set up and then ran from here to there while shooting cops, and then 2 seconds later he's across town shooting somebody on the street. But now, so much has happened since then, we already forget about that story. So now we're able to control the narrative about this war against police, which is also another fallacy. Right now it's just something else constructed by the media because we need to play race against each other. You're talking about being able to, and really what it is when we're talking about police brutality, it's a tactic used by the media to pit white versus black. They just use it, they just code it, we call it police brutality. Because at the end of the day, we know that the initial energy behind all these police brutality is racism. The reason it happens is because people are really not getting treated fairly by the judicial system. To put it lightly, they're not getting treated fairly. And furthermore, when regular people kill people, they go to jail. When cops kill people, they get paid vacation. That's just a fact. So getting back to being able to control the narrative before I go too far down that road, getting back to being able to control the narrative is what now we recognize this as fact. So we already say that this guy shot people when we know he didn't. When evidence there says he didn't. What about the brother in Baton Rouge that they said killed a cop? That didn't happen either. There were people who were on Facebook and Twitter at the same time saying that there was a shootout right down the road. The people on the block that the cops said were killed, nothing happened on that street. Nothing. People who live in Baton Rouge were on Facebook saying nothing happened. They said it was a shootout between people not involved with police. Witness, testimony. Meanwhile, quote unquote, the assault rifle is the one that took out the cop. You know, it really gets deep, and I think that's part of why I do what I do, is because at some point I thought I was going to go into news. You know, I got a degree in journalism. You know, I felt like there was some redeeming justice about being able to report what you consider truth, and then you realize that it's all lies. It's all lies. It's all people listening to their handlers. And the handlers have to be very careful, because those handlers are in the game for money. It's a racket, just like anything else. So a new murder mixtape drops, Korryn Gaines dies, people get shot on Facebook. You know what happens? The spike in advertising at CNN goes through the roof. That's an extra $50 million in advertising per night. What do? They're monetizing your grief. They're on top of you emotionally. They cash in on your anger when you see somebody discriminated on or killed in the street. They shut you down. It's a con. It's a sick con. We know that listen, if you get pissed, they sell Pepsi. That new Audi is hot. You know, what's the new movie? You know, oh man, everybody gonna be watching CNN tonight. Somebody else shot a cop. Somebody got killed on Facebook. Immediate money. So, you know, like I said, the narrative about the war on police, we know for a fact that police murders are down at an all-time low for 30 years, and their killing is up. But if you understand how the media works, they want you to believe that there's a war against police, because all of a sudden there have been these fabricated occurrences of people teaming up and shooting against the cops. I mean, we know black people are pissed, and they should be pissed, but we haven't started shooting cops yet. We know that. We know that. And there's always crazy people. There's always one nutcase. Everybody got them. Everybody got them, but we're not linking up. We're not linking up in groups to do it. And that's just, and we can talk about how the media uses our movements against us. I know people are familiar with the Black Lives Matter movement. The Black Lives Matter movement is a movement against police brutality. The thing about what people don't understand about Black Lives Matter is it's a movement that has been initiated by the CIA, and it's a COINTELPRO operation. If you understand how COINTELPRO works is, back in the days when they had organizations like the Black Panthers, they needed to find a down brother to infiltrate the organization so they could feed back and forth. Then you start feeding the organization with enough of your people, and it's funny, you always need to know, just trace the money. So anybody who's not familiar with George Soros, he funds Black Lives Matter. So Black Lives Matter, honestly, is an answer to police brutality in the eyes of people who are looking for change and justice. But it's already controlled opposition because the people who are in control of Black Lives Matter do not care. It's not about that. It's about controlling the narrative about what black people feel about cops. And then so when we have these protests, when you go to the grassroots of the situation, when you go to each person and say, hey, who's at the top of this? What are we doing? It's an organization that is funded by George Soros. Anybody who doesn't know who George Soros is, he's on the 0.00001% list of billionaires. George Soros funds genocide all over the world. Why would someone who funds genocide, the massacre of innocent civilians, what interest would he have in a Black Lives Matter here? Well, George Soros is also at the top of about 25 Fortune 500 corporations, as well as his close friends. And what you're able to do is you create something, because black people do need an answer to police brutality. We do. But the problem is, who's giving control? The reason why it's on CNN isn't because Oprah Winfrey donated $30 million and that's why they're on TV. No. There are plenty of movements that deserve to be heard, but we know about the movement that's getting heard. That's where the money's coming from. And the problem is, it's all, the whole point of the Black Lives Matter movement in terms of why would somebody do that to black people, it's to misrepresent the movement. It's not there, it's not designed to get the police to change, although we know that they need to change, and everybody thinks that the idea behind the group is to change. No, the idea of the group is to make you think that people want to change. It's to create that. As long as you think that people are out there in the streets protesting, you think something's being done. Yes, it's all theater. It's all theater. They set up the cameras, it's all theater. From the victims. And the thing about it is, when we talk about, we could get into, you know, I'm not big on conspiracy theories. You develop your information and you take what you know to be fact and you move along. What we know is enough to know that the mainstream media lies to us on a regular basis. So let's go a little further. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with a thing called Operation Mockingbird. It was instituted in the CIA in the 1950s, okay? In Operation Mockingbird, the director of the CIA says that we hire and control half the media. That's in 1950. That's in 1950. Now, 1950 is, God, that's a long time. That's 66 years. So think about 60, if half the media admitted by the director of the CIA was infiltrated in 1960, how much of the mainstream media is the CIA now? You're like, well, CIA, you know, it just sounds like some clandestine organization. No, it's about propaganda. It's about, no matter what the truth is, you are hired to say this because we said you need to say this. No matter what happens, this is what you say. No matter that boy was 12 years old, let's criminalize him. What shouldn't he have been doing? Playing with a toy gun. Now we can justify murder. We need that. Oh man, he got, you know what? His license was suspended and he hit his wife once, but he didn't. He was unarmed. But you know, he's a wife beater, so we shot him dead in the street. And we forget about it. That's just how it goes. You know, there are a few names that people don't forget about. People know Trayvon Martin. You know, some people might not know Jordan Davis. He had a toy gun in Walmart. He was on the phone when he got shot, and the cop shot him twice after he was on the ground. Jason Van Dyke, an officer, which I like, and this is the thing too. The police departments are able to control the footage of all the trash that they're doing. I love the body camera thing. But the police, they're still controlling that. You know the Freedom of Information Act, and by the way, the Age of Information is great. That's how we're catching them. But the Freedom of Information Act allows people to have to dig into stuff that should already be public info. You have to go get court orders and go see a judge and this and that to get stuff that you should just be able to get because they want you to be deterred from finding the truth. So what happened is, and because somebody dug last year, Jason Van Dyke, a cop in Chicago, shot this kid in the street. Now granted, the kid had a knife. He was walking away from the police. So the police shot him. Well, as the kid was walking away, and the kid was probably about 20 feet away, the cop shot him 9 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, hit the ground, on the ground. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The cop waited a second, drank a Capri Sun, and shot him 7 more times into the body. When CNN showed the footage, they showed the cop shooting the kid 4 times and hitting the ground, and they cut the footage off. What happened after that? The kid got shot 16 times. We only saw 4 bullets on video. That guy's free. He was on paid vacation. He said he didn't go to work. He didn't go to work for a day and made 100 grand, by the way. Wouldn't it be nice if you could not go to work and make 100 grand for killing somebody? It probably wouldn't be that nice because you'd have to kill somebody to do it. Also, something which I found interesting that, you know, and people are trying to understand, you know, how the police react to certain situations. I think it's important to know the hiring process by which police are hired now. In many states, not all states, but in many states, any cop with an IQ over 100 doesn't get hired. Okay? Any cop with in Missouri, if you have above a 90 IQ, they'll throw your application out. Now, I'm not saying that just because you don't have a high IQ, you can't be a good cop. But I'm also saying people with high IQs would make great cops that don't get considered to be police. And no one really seems to look at the type of candidates that they hire. I've got family in law enforcement. I have family in law enforcement for years. You know, I know the kind of members of my family are in law enforcement. I know them. I know what their type is. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that you see people who have a badge who just can't handle the stress of the situation. Furthermore, people who, I hate to say it, in many cases, they're given a pass. You know, I'm not going to go so far as to say that, you know, bad officers are instructed to kill people in the streets. But I'm telling you, they're not discouraged from killing people. If something happens, they're going to be gung-ho about it. They're ready for you. If you decide if you're going to be Corinne Gaines and you want to be held up in your house, they want to kill you. So, you know, and we know that they don't want to kill everyone, and not all cops are bad. I know that for a fact. I know some good cops. Not all cops are bad. But the institution that allows them to be able to over-criminalize people for the same crimes, the institution that allows people to be able to be put into the prison system at very young ages. The school-to-prison pipeline is real. When this kid gets in trouble in school, when this kid gets in trouble in school, they're handled differently. The social systems, the resources, I wish there was an easy way for us to be able to claim media, because I think being able to control our information is huge, especially now. And speaking of social media, I've been shut down on Instagram about 16 times in the last year. I know why, because I tell the truth. People don't like that. I get under people's skin. The reason I know I tell the truth, because if there's something I'm not knowledgeable about, I'll leave it alone. If there's something that I'm not totally into, I let it go. So I do my best work when I know what I'm talking about. And what I found through the last year especially is that people don't like it. You know, I've lost over 200,000 followers. I've counted each time, 200,000 followers. And that's cool. I mean, it's not cool, but it's cool, because I understand that the point of that is to shut me up. The point is that you don't want to hear what I'm having to say. And that's cool, because I feel like when your truth outweighs lies, people start to get it. I understand that I've gotten so many new followers who, the reason I do it, I don't do it for followers. I do it for that person who decided to research something that they never knew before. Or somebody who says, thank you very much, because that information I never would have known. I never would have considered that from this perspective. I always thought this. Just watching your video made me think about something. You know, really that's why you do it. I mean, spreading information and spreading knowledge is one of the most important things about life. I'm not like the person who's got all the keys. Like I used to have a cousin. You know, he knew all the moves in Mortal Kombat. And I was like, yo, how you know that move? He was like, nah, man, you learn that move. You learn that move. See, I'll teach you the move. I'm not holding on. If I got some moves, if you need to learn something, I'll teach it to you. Because, you know, people don't freely give away information anymore. Everything's locked up. And in the world of information, the way that we're able to catch up with social media, you know, social media is the most legitimate form of news at this point. CNN, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. I mean, come on. Fox News, come on. CNN, come on. They're all variations of the same lie. It's like, you know, they're no different than the Republicans and Democrats. And the people are fed up because who's excited about a presidential candidate? No one. No one's excited about voting now. At least, you know what? At least Barack Obama had you excited. You're not even excited now. You don't care. So you're excited because you don't want Trump to be president, only to have Hillary. And we're the people right now. You know, these are the people that supposedly we put in office. And we can talk about the electoral college and the political system, but I think furthermore, people have to understand that in order to go against everything, this 1% process that kind of has the world doing backflips and people don't understand what's going on, you've got to start doing your own research. You got to start knowing, you have to stop taking for granted the fact that you're getting the truth from where people give you your information. And the funny thing is, it's like, you know, people, they want to be informed. They really want to be informed. People watch the news thinking that they want to learn the truth. And then they lie to you. Then you feel some type of way because you don't know you're being lied to. They just want, they need to rile your fear up. They need you to be afraid. As long as you're afraid, they can sell stuff. If you're afraid, they'll sell anything. If a terrorist attack hits Belgium, guess what? You're going to be glued to that television. And chances are, that wasn't a legitimate terrorist attack. They just needed to spin something up to spew some propaganda. I'm telling you, the elite play games with the public just to see what you're going to buy. And it doesn't even matter that you don't buy it. You know why? Because they'll just do something else and you'll forget about it. We're becoming desensitized to all the, think about, you know, like we're talking about agendas, you know, the gun control agenda. I'm not going to really super get into that, but just think about the fact that all these attacks happen with AR-15s. We haven't had terrorist attacks in our country since 9/11. No, other than Dylann Roof, we don't call him a terrorist, by the way. He's not an ISIS boss. The guy who shot at the church in Charleston, or the bomber, the guy who shot the abortion clinic guy who's killing people, we don't call them terrorists. You know what I'm saying? But all this terrorist that happened this year, all this supposed terrorism, this is all new stuff and we're desensitized to it. People have already forgotten about Orlando because we just had Dallas, we just had Baton Rouge. And so when something else happens, we're going to forget about it. It's like we've already got that. We already have forgotten that we already know that these are the people who did the killings, but it's in fact, they put it in the book now. You know what I mean? It's already in the books. Micah X. Johnson, he did it. It's already in the book. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to close out, man, because I can go in on this stuff all day. Social media, content creation. One thing I had to start doing when I did this work, I am a filmmaker. What I had to start doing was kind of tightening my process. In film, things tend to get long. But if I'm doing news and I'm writing a story and I'm editing the story by myself, I have to be fast. I've got to be really fast. And I have to be creative. You know, so I don't just give you the news, I'll be in your face because sometimes I want you to think a little bit. I don't want you to be comfortable when you hear my message. I want you to laugh a little bit. I want you to get it. And then there's something I want you to not get. I want you to watch the video twice and be like, what does he mean by that? And then maybe do some research. So in terms of content creation, I think that's very, very, very important. Get as much stuff, if you're in social media, get as much stuff as you can. If you're a writer, write as much stuff as you can. Write as much stuff about relative topics and issues, something that you know can be marketed. For me, it was big at just being able to put out work. If I work on a video, man, it used to take me hours. It might take me 8 hours to do a short video. And you know, you're a filmmaker. You know, 8 hours is nothing to edit something. But if I want to be on top of the news, I got to chop this crap up in an hour and a half. And it better be good. Like at this point, I can't just tell the news anymore. If I'm not snazzy, I can't just go up there and just say, hey, this happened today. I can't do that anymore. I kind of set the bar too high for myself on that part. Because I was trying to catch people's attention. Because I wanted somebody to say, hey, okay, I learned something today. He was kind of different than what I'm used to seeing in terms of how people give me your information. So, which is cool because it makes everything a challenge, but it makes everything that it takes me that much longer because I always want to be creative. You know, if something happens, we know it didn't happen. I can't tell the news like it is because the news says one thing and we already know that's not the truth. And so then if I got to tell you something that I know to be true, I got to develop everything. The news can just say this happened, somebody said this happened, okay, this happened. And then I got to be like, somebody said this happened, this is what they say happened, this is what really happened, this is what's going to happen. And I got to say it right after they told me what happened. So, you know, I'm like the news for the news. You know, I would like to say I police the news. I can't give them a speeding ticket or nothing, so I just blast them when I can. You know, corporations run this country. Corporate greed is ridiculous. The reason why the news is the way it is because they have advertisers who pay them a lot of money. And money is power, money is control. We all know about money. So money's bigger than racism. It really is. A lot of the stuff you think is white and black. No, white and black is the hottest ticket in town. Race is the hottest ticket. They got Charles Barkley on his TV show. We ain't even gonna talk about it. Charles Barkley on a race show? Come on. And we know what that's about. You know what that's about? You put a coon like Charles Barkley on television to talk about race. He's like, well, you know, one of you says that you guys ought to pull up your pants and blah, blah, blah. You know why? Because Charles Barkley, he's a black guy. Now he speaks for you. So they control the narrative through Charles Barkley. You know, now, is Charles Barkley qualified to talk about something like he doesn't, his basketball knowledge is limited. I mean, he's on television, but his basketball knowledge is, come on, questionable. But you telling me Charles Barkley, he's Phil Donahue now. I mean, I would have took Phil Donahue. Where's Phil Donahue at? He ain't had a job. Charles Barkley got a job. He's not that articulate, but we will, and it's called the race card, by the way. The race card. That's not a term that black people use. Starring a black person, called the race card. I've never heard a black person say, hey, I pulled the race card. No. That's what people say when they want to deny that racism exists. You're pulling a race card. Black police aren't racist. So it's like a Trump card. And Charles Barkley is Trump card. No pun intended there. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't even care if Trump wins or Hillary. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. I'm glad we got Obama. I'm kind of disappointed in him, but he's smooth. He's smooth as hell. He's smooth. I can't, he's a politician, man. I wish we could believe in politicians again, but the system is rigged. And I think the main thing is people just have to start waking up. The power is in the corporations and in the money and in the 1%. And once the people can find a way to restore their power, and we have to start doing it with just information and knowledge. We have to know what they're doing. Because right now in this racial climate, they are using our emotions against us to make money. And that's just not cool. It's really not. It's despicable when you think about it. So that's it. I'm gonna get up out of here. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me right now. Don't all ask me questions at the same time, because, okay. About that. You came into work early. You was putting in stuff for some stuff a week away. Listen, something next week is, you don't know what's about to happen. Right. But something happened, right? Something happened, right? Yeah. Something happened. Yeah, like I said, the race is the hottest ticket in town. I'm gonna leave on this. Do not allow the media to manipulate your emotions. They're banking on that. They're cashing in on that every single chance they get. Every single chance they get. And especially be cognizant of the fact that all of these videos that are coming out, I mean, it's just really due to the increase of camera phones. Police been killing people. But now everybody's got a Facebook, everybody's got a phone with a camera on. And yes, record the police. And recording the police doesn't guarantee that they're not going to kill you, by the way. Or get away with killing you. But still record them. Yeah, and just like I was talking about the Corinne situation, controlling the narrative. Social media is ahead of the media. She was streaming her story live on Facebook. You can't lie about anything. It's right there on camera. And it's funny that if people don't have anything to hide, if you're not doing anything bad, why would you not want to be recorded? the biggest thing, that was the biggest argument while they shut her down. We don't want her to interfere with the investigation. No, you're interfering with the investigation by taking it down. Let's get a live feed. She's cool with it. The quote-unquote future victim's cool with it.